Welcome to the Junk Drawer Mamas with your hosts Dina Tricino and Christina Queen. We are so glad you're here with us as we sort through the drama and the trauma of life's hidden struggles to uncover hope and healing with a side of humor on this roller coaster ride we like to call extreme parenting. Whether you're raising a child or a teen with special needs, dealing with challenging behaviors, tackling addiction, mental health issues, or working through the trauma associated with foster care, it's a lot, and we get it. But you don't have to do this alone. So grab a cozy chair, settle in, and let's take this journey together.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Junk Drawer Mamas podcast. I hope everybody's had an awesome week. We are excited to be back with you. Before we get going with today's item in the junk drawer, I wanted to get some housekeeping stuff out of the way and just kind of let you know some things that are going on with us. We started this podcast originally because we wanted to share the things that are going on in our lives as special needs moms or moms navigating extreme parenting situations. But we're also up to some other things too, like we're both authors and speakers and coaches and all of that. So I wanted to share a couple things that we've got going on. Also, if you are a brand new listener, welcome to the family. Welcome to our craziness. If you have been listening from the very beginning, we thank you. We love you. We are so grateful for your support. Please take the time to like, share, subscribe, all of that. It does help the algorithm and it helps us to be able to reach more moms when we can share this. So we really appreciate your support on that. And we also wanted to give a shout out to the Warrior Writers. Christine and I are part of this amazing writing group called the Warrior Writers. We write for Kingdom Impact. And we just want to thank our coach, 𝗵𝗵𝗁𝗏. And the reason that we want to do that is because both Christina and I are newly published authors. Actually, Christina is a published author before me. We're going to talk about that next. But anyway, both are now authors in a compilation book, an anthology called Resilience. And the second one just came out. So I want to give a shout out to that. So I'm going to hold up both of them. The first one is called Resilience, Women Rising to Their Greatest Moments. That's the one that Christine and I are in. On the Resilience, Love, Family, and Friendships That Endure. And these are from amazing women that have gone through some very difficult situations, which is a lot of what we share on this channel, on this podcast. Missy will help us to find our story, and then we go through healing. And, we work out all that stuff so that we can write from a healed place. And that's a lot of really what lines up with Christine and I do on this podcast. We bring to you our experiences, our stories from a healed place. I'm not saying by any means, and I'm sure Christina would attest to this, we are not perfect and we are still working through our stuff, but we have come through some really difficult things that God has healed us in and want to be able to share with other people. So it's the same thing with the books. We just want to shout out to all our Warrior Writers. We're so proud of you. We're super excited that the books are out. Go check them out on Amazon. It's called Resilience, Anthology 1 and Anthology 2. And also Christina, look at her cute little book. It's called Moby's Big Adventure. And this is Moby. He's a little panda bear. So Christina, tell us a little bit about what Moby's Big Adventure is.
The book is just a tool for foster parents to help them connect to their foster child. I'd say about ages 3 to 5-ish, depending on the child. It's just a tool to help them get to know the little ones that are being placed in their home a little bit quicker, like maybe the foods that they like, what their bedtime routine might look like, if they like animals, or if they're afraid of them. So it's like a little interactive book for foster parents to read with their new foster children. And then, of course, there's a Moby plush to go with it so that
Isn't
they have
he so cute?
something to cuddle with. So, yeah, that's Moby. He's a 3-year-old
Awesome.
panda bear that's in foster care.
Now, you're also working on different age groups, too. Aren't you working on your second book for the next age group?
Yes, that is, I believe that's going to be from, I want to say maybe 6 to 12. I'm still kind of working out the age range on that, but that's The Adventures of Squash and Eddie. So it's going to be a
Didn't you say that one of the characters was like a Sasquatch or like
a Sasquatch and a Yeti?
That's cool.
Yes,
that's so cool. A Yeti, I love Yetis.
Yes.
Awesome. And then Christina also has a ministry called Faith Through Foster Care. And she just has a passion to really educate on the foster care system as well as educate Christians to be able to come together and foster. I think we heard a statistic when we were at this convention that we were just at, that if every Christian family adopted one foster child, there would be no foster
there
children.
Would be no fosters.
That just blows me away.
There'd be no need
Absolutely
for foster
blows me
care
away. And I'm
anymore.
not saying that it's an easy thing, and it's definitely not for everybody, but I'm just saying that those people that God has called for the orphans and the foster care system, that is part of that. The widows and the orphans, we were called to support and care for them. Christina and her husband, they've adopted 9, fostered over 30. Right now they have 10 children in their home. Her mission is so, so, so important.
And even if you're not meant to foster, which a lot of people are not, it's just not your calling, every single person can come around people that are fostering. We've been doing this for 20 years and we've never had any help. We've had almost nobody ever come around us to support us, to say, hey, do you need a break? Can we bring you a meal because everybody in the house is sick? Nothing. We've had nothing like that apart from my family helping when we need help. We've never had any. So even if you're not called to foster, everybody's called to help.
Yeah.
So if people will come up around foster families, people that God has called to open their homes and just support them, we would be able to do this longer and better. Yeah. And be able to serve and love the kids better because we're not in a constant state of exhaustion, on this end of it. So, yeah.
So that's part of the advocacy. Not only is she a voice for the voiceless, she's a voice for the kids, but she also is raising awareness for the needs of the families. And a lot of times I think most people don't even realize there is a need. It's not that they don't want to help. I think there's a lot of people out there that would in a heartbeat help. They just didn't even know that was an issue, which is part of what we're going to talk about as we get into the junk drawer item that we're going to talk about. A lot of times it's just raising awareness. It's not that people don't want to help. Most of the time they don't know how. So it would be up to us to share that. If I was a foster parent and I needed help, as Christina knows, I would have to say what that was that I needed help with and then be willing to receive that.
That's a lot of the issue that we don't like, especially as moms. We don't like to ask for help. We typically do not. We just, we'll just do it. Either whether it's a pride thing and we're just like, well, I'm just going to do it because it's not going to get done right, or whatever that looks like. A lot of times we just simply don't ask for help. I know throughout the years, the last 20 years, that if I would have asked for help, people would have helped. But I've kind of had the attitude, well, me and my husband took this on. It's not everybody else's responsibility. And I do believe God's shifted that a little bit in we are all called to be his hands and feet. And if we have help, then it keeps us in a healthier mindset to be able to do this and to be able to run the race well and not just drag through it.
Yeah.
So, I think that's important.
The warfare that is on families that are fostering, because the enemy has already wreaked havoc in these kids' lives from the trauma that they've had to experience. If they're in foster care, I do understand that some children go into foster care because maybe their parents both died in an accident or there isn't a next of kin for them to go to. But I would say that the majority, from what I've learned from you, Christina, is that the kids that are entering into foster care is because there was trauma, because there was abuse. And so there's already an open door and the enemy comes in to wreak havoc, to kill, steal, and destroy. So the families that have been commissioned to be the ones to raise these kids are under an extreme amount of warfare.
Yeah.
It was the same thing when my husband and I were running our outreach. At that time, I didn't even understand what warfare was or any of that. I was so uneducated about that. But we were dealing with at-risk youth and all the trauma that they would, we had many, many foster kids that came to our program, kids that were in juvie, kids that were depressed, cutting, and all of that. And the amount of warfare that comes from their families, we really needed a protection and a covering, and we didn't know that. Back then, I didn't know that, but thank God, God still did amazing work through us. Certainly did cause my family some problems, for sure. But we definitely want to come up around families that are doing that and support them, because that is what this mission is, bringing the gospel and the love of Christ to this world. So we thank you for you and what you do and you and your husband do. So again, that's Moby's Big Adventure. I will link all of this in our show notes, and also the 2 resilience books. I will put Amazon links and Christina's website to order her book. And also, I have Specially Empowered Moms, and I do have a YouTube channel called Specially Empowered Moms. And every day I bring an encouraging word just to help moms that are walking through something difficult. So the difference between Junk Drawer Mamas and Specially Empowered Moms, so we always say it, Specially Empowered Moms is the next level. Junk Drawer, we got to dig through the junk drawer first. So if you're new and you haven't been following us, what the junk drawer represents are all the things that we shove down, we hide, either we're too embarrassed to deal with, we don't know how to deal with. It's the heaviness of it, and we just shove it in because we don't know what to do with it. And we have to start pulling those things out, because what is hidden can't be healed. But once you start cleaning up that junk drawer and stuff, and you start really understanding who your identity is, and you start to understand how to actually walk in the authority that God has given you as his daughter, and be able to partner with him in that parenting role, in that extreme parenting situation, then at that point, you now become a specially empowered mom. You're walking with Holy Spirit. You're no longer living in this depleted, frustrated, burnt out state. Are you still dealing with big challenges? Absolutely. But God did not call us to this so that we could give up our life. He did not call us to this so that we could just struggle through life. The price that Christ paid for us was not for us just to get by. It was so that we could have life and have it abundantly, even in difficult situations. And so that's what Especially Empowered Moms is how to continue to support those moms that understand that. But there's a journey to getting to that. Both Christine and I have walked through some we had to do a lot of inner work to even be able to be sitting here on this podcast right now. And that's another whole episode to go through all of that. So anyway, thank you for giving us the opportunity to just kind of share all that and to share what's going on with us in our lives. And I will link all of this in the show notes as far as where you can connect with us on social media and all of that. So anyway, back to our regularly scheduled program and what we're digging into the junk drawer with this time. Last time we talked about one of the items that's very common in special needs parenting or extreme situations is isolation, loneliness, and friendship. And we broke that down. I would suggest to go back and look at that one or listen to that one. That was episode 10. We're on episode 11 now. And that'll kind of help give you the foundation of what we're going to be talking about now. But today we're going to talk about what does it really mean to be a good friend? What does a special needs mom need as a friend? And then how can we learn to be a good friend? And so I'm going to remind you again that both Christina and I are definitely not through digging through our junk drawers. We still have to work through that. And, God gave us an opportunity to do that. We were at a very large international Christian broadcasting convention or media convention where we were promoting junk drawer mamas for everybody. We were out there promoting our book, Warrior Writers and the Junk Drawer Mamas. Anyway, we shared a room together, but we were both of us were going through some tough stuff, but Christina was really sick and she was dealing with a lot of stuff from home. And so we really learned a lot on how to support each other. At least I did. I made a lot of mistakes. So I'm going to just own up to it that I don't necessarily know if I was being such a good friend. Because I think a lot of times we don't like our friend hurting and we don't, want somebody going through something difficult. So we want to give advice, but nobody asks us for unsolicited advice. And so sometimes it makes it worse when you try to say something, maybe try this or do this, or, even trying to understand a very difficult situation that they might be going through at home. And we just think that we know what that's like, and that could actually put a fracture in the friendship. Now, I'm not saying that our friendship was fractured. I think we are much bigger than that, but God did absolutely show us areas of our own heart. I think both of us can talk about that, where that was something that he used to show the areas of our heart. And both Christina and I very much want to honor God and our relationship with him and each other and our families. So we ask him to show us. So if the caveat here is that we ask him to make us more like him and to show us the areas of our heart that do not align with that. So if that's not something you've done, then this might not resonate with you. But if you've asked him, believe he's going to show you. He's going to show you those areas that do not line up with it, because that's actually what we've prayed for. So anyway, before I get into that, is there, you want to just share maybe what you got out of that? And then we'll jump into what a special needs mom would tell us if she could tell us what it was like to be a friend.
It's the same as you're aware of. I have not had a lot of friendships over the years. I've had very few and far between just because of the way my life looks. A lot of people don't want to be friends with somebody that's toting 10 kids around everywhere they go.
I don't know why it makes you laugh. You're like, oh no, here she comes.
Right. So because of that, I've, just kind of resorted to staying in my own little bubble. And that is not what God wants for us. Friendships are very important, biblically speaking, and we need that. We need the friendships. And I was reminded, and then I shared with you about a couple years ago when I was praying and I wrote it down. And one of the things that I wrote down and stuck in my book was God breathed friendships. And now I recognized that that's exactly what I have with you. And I feel like continuously kind of smoothing each other's rough edge. And because it is a God
sandpaper.
Right. But because it is a God-breathed friendship, we can, even if we start to feel a little offended, we can quickly come back from that and recognize that it's being love. We're not trying to hurt one another. We're not trying to, and apologize if we need to apologize.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing in our friendship that we can't walk through, get past. I very much believe that every woman and man, but every one of us needs at least one God-breathed friendship, like at least one friendship that just feels like it is straight from God.
Yeah.
But we're built for connection. We're built to do life with people. So to stay home and stay isolated and never, get those connections and those friendships is a strategy, I feel like, of the enemy. That's what he wants us to do, stay disconnected. Because now that I have obviously this friendship with you, but there's also my mom and my sisters and my niece and some people in my life, so do you. But we've also got, in the Warrior Riders, we got a group of women that at any point in time,
they're amazing.
If we need prayer, we've got 20 plus women praying over us, because that's what friendships are, especially friendships from God, is just someone who's got your back, people who've got your back. So, because we're not created to do this alone. We're created to do it with God and with friends, with people that can help us.
So when you said got your back, that's a really good point, because one of the things that I believe, we'll break this down a little bit more, but having your back is not necessarily just there to hold your hand, comfort you, all of that. Part of iron sharpens iron is saying those hard things. So I walked through a season when I was at my outreach, and I thought I had friends that were around me. But what ended up happening is that instead of saying, you know what, there's something going on with you, let's talk. Is there any support that you need? They ended up gossiping about me behind my back for almost a year. That was going on. And it devastated me. I felt such deep betrayal from the people that I thought I was closest to, because they couldn't have just come to me and say, look, you're being a jerk. You know what I mean? Or whatever it was. I don't even remember what it was I was doing. I just know that I was very stressed all the time. I was very controlling because I didn't know my identity. I didn't know how to walk through that difficult situation. I was a new special needs mom while trying to raise my other 4 kids, be a wife, and run this very large youth ministry. So I was a mess most of the time, trying to pretend that I was okay, but I wasn't okay. And so if I would snap at somebody or maybe say something that I shouldn't have said, or in a way I didn't say it, somebody that cared about me should have pulled me aside and talked to me about it, instead of just retreating away or gossiping to somebody else. So part of having each other's backs is having the hard conversations too. Not breaking off the friendship because somebody said something hurtful. We're human beings and we're going to make mistakes. We do it with our spouse all the time. We don't get a divorce every time you get into an argument. At least I hope not. You know what I'm saying? I'm going on 25 years. Christina, you're at 30. How many
32.
years have you guys been?
32.
Yeah, like if you guys, could go back and say every single argument that you've had, if you would have ended it, like, come on. So it's the same thing with friendships. Sometimes you're going to go through some rough times with somebody. Well, that's part of having each other's backs as well. Not just saying, I'll pray for you. What do you need from me? Sometimes it's the tough words that we need to hear from the other person. So, anyway, so what I wanted to start off with is, when you're a special needs mom, I would say start off with, we're already 20 minutes into this episode. Being a special needs mom, it is a profound journey of love and, I would say, sacrifice. Okay. And the challenges that come with that, I would say most people, unless you've walked it, will not understand that. So trying to do that and maintain your typical friendships is very, very challenging. Sometimes the friendships fall by the wayside because you don't have time to invest into that. That doesn't mean we don't want friendships. So I would say, if you're a special needs mom, what would you say about friendships? I still need them. I want you to still invite me. I might not be able to show up. I might have 10 therapy appointments this week. Christina's got endless doctor's appointments and therapy appointments with all her kids. She doesn't have a lot of quantity of time. So even if we only get a quick phone call, I don't know how quick our phone calls are, but anyway, it's quality more than it is quantity. And so I would say one of the biggest things is that we want to be remembered. We want to know that somebody cares about us, even if we can't give the same amount to that friendship. Now, hopefully God will bring the same types of people, I think, like people, that are equally yoked, make really good friendships. But that doesn't mean that I don't have friends that are not special needs moms. I mean, I do. And so part of that is that for us as moms to express that, please invite me. Like, that's the other thing too. It's both sides. We have to say to them, yes, I want to be invited, but please forgive me if I don't come. It all depends on whether my child is going to behave well or not, or whether I have a babysitter. And a lot of moms that are raising young ones probably have that same issue, but we'll have it for the rest of our lives. There's always going to be somebody that need for childcare just for us to even go have coffee with someone else. For me, I don't know about you, but I can't bring Gracie with me to the coffee date or whatever, because she's disruptive or she doesn't want to be there. So the minute we're there, if she doesn't like it, she will pitch a fit and cause a complete temper tantrum because she wants to leave. And that doesn't make it very easy for me to connect with that person that wanted to go to lunch.
Right.
So anyway, invite us along. And is there something too, Christina, that you can come off? I have a list here, but I'm sure you probably have some things that you would want people to know if you could tell them what you would need for a friend. What do you need from a friend to understand about your journey?
I think that just, some weeks I might be able to talk to you every day, and other weeks I might not be able to talk to you even one time. It depends on what my life is looking like. And as you know, just since our trip about a week ago, I came home sick. I thought she
was mad at me.
Yeah, she did.
I was like, that's it, girl. I'm coming to Ohio. I don't care. If you don't at least send me a thumbs up that you're okay, I'm going to drive there.
Honestly, though, I was sick the whole time I was gone. I've been sick now for 2 weeks and 3 days.
Please pray for her whole family.
Finally went to the doctor yesterday because Dina was like, you need to go be seen. So I finally drugged myself and went to urgent care, and ending the flu, but I have a sinus infection. So, I've got, I'm on antibiotics, and then I've got like five of the kids here that have the flu or out of the flu right now. So it had nothing to do with not wanting to check. I mean, it's all you can do to keep up with the sick kids and, feeling exhausted and like you just want to sleep and not do anything. It has nothing to do with not wanting to talk to your friend. You're exhausted. And that's what it's been like for the last, week or so. Since I've been home. And it was also like that while I was gone. I got sick literally the night before we flew out for Texas. And I kept thinking, I'm just going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to be done. And I had thought that every single day. I'm going to be fine tomorrow. And I have had every symptom that you could possibly imagine. And it seems like I've had it forever. She's still here
recording a podcast. So for all you mamas out there want to say something, there's no honor in just suffering through it. So I was telling her, get to the doctor. We got to put the oxygen mask on ourselves. So many times we're like, we're these warriors. We got to take care of all of our sick kids, but we got to take care of ourselves so we can take care of our sick kids. So if you're sick, get to the doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm so glad that she's on the mend. So if you hear coughing and all that, that's what's going on, but we still showed up.
Yes.
We showed up. That's the best thing. So you were saying just that I might not be able to be there. So we want to be invited, but also understand that I might not be able to show up. I might not be able to spend a lot of time with you.
And it's not personal. It has
personal.
Nothing to do with
I had to really learn that because the enemy comes in and wants to wreak havoc. I'm always saying that because there was just a heaviness. There was a heaviness over the week. What was going on? Things didn't go the way we had planned. We were very excited to go. And there was just a lot of stuff that kind of came up. And that's just life. That is the way life goes. And so the enemy comes in and starts to wreak havoc, and you start to think, especially if you've had experiences before, like I have, and I'm sure Christina has, where you say one wrong thing or even a few wrong things, and now that person doesn't want to be friends with you anymore.
Yeah.
So then you start feeling like, okay, here it goes again. I should have never put myself out there to be vulnerable, to have a friend, because I say one wrong thing and now I'm going to lose this person too. And that is what the enemy does to wreak havoc.
It's the offense. We
that's
let
the
offense get in. Somebody gets an attitude, the other person gets an attitude, and you can just bounce back and forth, and you can, because of our pride, you can completely lose a friendship that could have been, and very well may have been a God-breathed friendship, and you turn your back and walk away from it because of your own pride and your own offense. Well, I'm not going to let them talk to me like that. I don't know who they think they are. Well, maybe they said something or told you something that God wanted them to. And because you've got your walls up and you've got that spirit of offense in play there, you're not hearing it.
Yeah.
So
that was totally me. I'm so glad that you said that. I know we're kind of rabbit trailing and going all over. That was definitely there for me, especially in the very beginning of my journey as a special needs mom. I felt like if you didn't understand what I was going through, you have no right to speak into my life. And I took offense all the time. Mostly it was to protect myself, I think, than it was because I just wanted, I never want to be mean. I don't have a mean heart. But I had a controlling heart. I wanted to control so that I could protect. So it was pride. It was operating in that spirit of offense. But I wouldn't let people even talk to me or say anything to me because I felt like they didn't have the right, because they didn't understand. And we don't necessarily have to understand. I've just done a few videos about this for my YouTube channels that I don't think that everybody will understand, and that's okay. But sometimes God will bring even the most unlikely person to speak into your life. Or your spouse, that's another one he can use to sharpen you, and it doesn't always go the way you planned it to. So I was definitely one of those people that took offense.
Yeah.
And I've really learned, because I want to operate in love, and as Christina says a lot, we want to do everything through the fruits of the Spirit. I have to take a hard look at myself and understand that maybe this person is actually speaking in love. It might seem harsh because of the lens I'm looking through, but it actually is there to help me. What she or he is saying to me is there to help me. And so honestly, if you're walking with God, you'll be able to discern that versus somebody that is just has a mean spirit. I don't really think I've had many people in my life that operated in a mean spirit. I think most of the time it was because I wasn't in the receiving place of that.
Yeah.
One of the things that Joyce Meyer says is that you can have the perfect words, but the wrong timing, and then that could actually fracture a friendship or could fall on deaf ears. That was so good. So sometimes it was the wrong timing. It wasn't necessarily that person had the wrong thing to say to me. So anyway, that was definitely me. Thanks for sharing that. The other thing too, that if we were wanting to let people know how to be friends with us, because we're going to get into how we too need to be a good friend. Offer to learn about our kids. Offer to learn what makes our kids different, especially if you're a mom that has, as we say, typical kids, or,
traditional.
I don't even know all the words anymore. So we try our best not to offend with what we say. I don't know all the words, and I'm not going to try to learn every word, whether it's neurotypical or any of that. It's just too much. It's too much. We're all in the same tribe. We're all moms trying to raise our kids. But Gracie is very different than most kids. It would help me for you to teach your child about Gracie, about what it's like to have Down syndrome, why she looks different, why she acts different. And then maybe offer to learn a little bit about that. Again, this is for people that are choosing to be in a friendship with you. I'm not saying that every single person needs to know this. I do think people do need to understand. I think you mentioned that last episode, Christina, that as moms, we have an obligation to teach our children kindness.
Yes.
Not only do we as moms need to be kind to other people and other people's kids, but we have an obligation to teach our children how to be kind, no matter what that child is going through. We just don't know what people are walking through. But we do. Our kids aren't going to know if we don't share them that, the differences that kids have. And they're not bad things. They're just different things. Okay. Gracie has a very difficult time managing her emotions and regulating herself. And so, it would be nice to be able to have other kids understand that and not always have to be making apologies for why Gracie acts the way she does.
Right.
So the other thing too is, and I just want to say I'm speaking more because I'm just trying to keep Christina's voice healing. We want to make sure that we're healing. We didn't want to miss an episode with you guys, so we still chose to come on and record and show up for you guys, even though she's not feeling well. So I love you and I thank you for doing that, even though you probably would rather be sleeping right now.
I got
so
kids,
if you wonder why I'm talking
happen.
so much, that's why.
Got kids, too many kids to sleep.
Yep. Okay. So also the other thing too is that we want to be able to educate, just like Christina educates about foster care and what a foster family would need for support. So as special needs moms, we want you to understand that what we're going through, that doesn't mean we don't want friends. But on the other side of that, how can we be better friends ourselves? And so we can't just assume that it's somebody else's job to always just come to us and ask us what we need. We also have to be mindful of how we are showing up in that relationship. And one of the other things that we learned in our week away with each other is that sometimes even your very best friend does not need to carry the weight of what you're going through. So the heaviness of what we're going through does not always need to be shared with somebody, because especially if that person really loves you and cares for you, now they're taking offense because now they're dealing with that because they don't want you to be hurt and they don't want you to be dealing with that, especially if somebody else said something to you or did something to you that offended you. Now you tell your best friend. So especially as mom, we go through a lot of challenges. And it's up to me to make sure that I'm mindful about not putting all that on somebody else, the heaviness of that on someone else, and not complaining all the time. Both Christine and I do our best to not complain. We've actually made a pact to try to not be negative. It doesn't always work. Like I said, we're still working through our junk drawer, and a lot of times we'll get on and start complaining about our life. But because we've been trying to be intentional, I'm more aware of when I'm doing it than I was before. When I was just not paying attention to that, I didn't realize actually how much I do complain to her. You know, and so I guess when you find a friend that really will listen, you do want to unload a lot. But we do have to be very mindful to make sure that we're not just spewing all of that on somebody else, because we don't know if they can handle the weight of that. Even another special needs mom, she's already carrying a lot of weight. She's already dealing with the stuff in her home. If you're in foster care, then you're dealing with court systems and social workers and mandated appointments and visits and things. And like the last thing she needs is for me to be complaining because of something 𝗫𝗓𝗄 did or whatever I'm dealing with in my family. And so I have to be mindful of that, to not do that, and vice versa. And so that's something that we as women or moms or special needs moms can do. We can make sure that we're not doing that. I do think there is a time and a place to just let somebody vent.
Yes.
Because if we don't, it will explode. Honestly, we'll end up exploding all over our kids because that's the one we're with most of the time, or our spouse. So we do need to have that, but we got to be mindful that not everything was meant to be shared.
We need to have discernment in that area. And even if that looks like praying about it before we just start verbally vomiting all over our best friend, because we need to get it out.
Yeah.
Just because we need to get it out doesn't mean that they need to hear it.
Yes.
You know, we know God's always there to listen, and sometimes we just need to take it to him and not to everybody else, because we can very quickly and very easily slide into that place of complaining. And what else does Joyce Meyer say? You complain, you remain.
Yes.
And I've remained in some places way longer than what I needed to because of my complaining. So we've got to use discernment, and God gives each one of us discernment.
Yes.
And down inside, I think we know whether we're just complaining or whether we need to talk and we need prayer.
Yeah.
So
we know that misery loves company. Like, honestly, if you are one of those people that needs to get everything out, please make sure that you're doing that with a trusted person that has been down that road and can give you advice. That's the best advice I can give you that I've learned from myself, because if you're talking to somebody that has not overcome it yet, then you're just commiserating together, and that's very unhealthy. That gives an open door to the enemy to come in. We don't want to just be both complaining. A lot of women do this about their spouses, and they just compare, and what I've found for myself, especially when it comes to marriage, that 99% of it is me. I'm not saying that God doesn't have to deal with my husband, and he does, but most of the time God is more concerned about working on my heart and my character than removing the situation or fixing the situation.
Yeah.
So make sure when you are talking to somebody that it is somebody that can give you good biblical advice and wisdom in that after they've listened, because I do think that we should be able to be there and listen to each other. The other thing too, and when it comes to that, is I think that it's important for there to be a back and forth in a relationship. It can't be all one-sided. And I had a friend years ago, she was actually the pastor's wife. And I thought we were very good friends. And I think that we were, but she never allowed me to hear her life. I would say every time we would get together for lunch, she would want to know everything that was going on with me. And it felt like I was in a constant counseling session. And I never could speak into her life or even just know about her life. And I think that had a lot more to do with the fact that she probably didn't want anybody to know what was going on in her life. And honestly, her and her husband ended up getting a divorce, and it destroyed the church. But if she was able to actually share that with somebody, maybe we could have helped. Maybe we could have all gathered around them before that got to that, before the enemy came in and wreaked havoc and destroyed that family and many, many other families along the way. So it wasn't a back and forth relationship. It was all like her wanting to pour into me, and I didn't feel like I was contributing to her life at all. So that's another thing in friendship. How do you be a good friend? You let somebody else contribute to you. You share your stuff too. So there can be a balance to be had where you don't want to tell everybody too much because you don't want to burden them.
Right.
But then you also don't want to keep it all to yourself and then have that person feel like they don't want to contribute.
Yeah. I think the other side of that too is sometimes because our life may be a little overwhelming at times, or there feels like so much, then I think sometimes we go the other direction and we just like tell everything, and it's just about us, about us, about us, about us. And when we get together, it's everything that's happening with me, and we forget to say what's happening in your life, what's going on with you.
Yes.
What is, what do you need? Because we're so busy about us, telling everything about our drama and our situation and our,
that's really good.
Our life and what that looks like. And honestly, our friendship is probably the first friendship where I'm really learning more about what it should look like, because I have not been, and I still struggle with that, a good friend. I can go, a week or weeks without talking to a person, not because I don't love them, not because I don't care about them. It's just because I get so caught up in my life and what's going on here day to day. And it can be so overwhelming at times, or just the stress. And then you feel like the last thing you want to do then is get on the phone or talk or chat. But honestly, when we do that, when we're intentional and we reach out or make those connections, just like us, we all come out of it more healed than when we went in. Because like you said, a good friend can speak into your life in areas and ways, even different perspectives that we haven't even thought about, because we're in it alone.
Yeah, sometimes it's a blind spot. You're not even seeing that that's going on, or you're operating in something,
Yep. Yeah. And so I think it's very important for us to be
what's
intentional.
Happening. We're not actually realizing how we're walking through it.
Yes. And I've struggled and it's been very difficult for me to be intentional in relationships and in friendships, like me reaching out. A lot of times if somebody doesn't reach out to me, I just simply don't. And I think it's become a habit and a pattern that I need to break, because it's not healthy. And no friendship should be one-sided. And I definitely recognize in my past, and I'm trying to do better now. And I've got you that understands this a little bit more now. But it can be hard just walking through your life and just be, I'll call next week, or I'll call this, or I've got to do this or that. And, just getting overwhelmed with some of your day-to-day stuff that you're dealing with, that you go to bed and you're like, man, I forgot to call him, or man, I forgot. And we've got to learn to be more intentional. Be the kind of friend that you want to be, or not that you want to be, but that you want to have. Be the person that you want to, have in a friendship.
Honestly, that's why we're doing what we're doing, is because we want to show up and be the kind of people that we both needed. We didn't have this when we were walking through the hardest seasons of our life. And, like Christina, you're still walking through some pretty hard seasons in your life. We both are. We want to be intentional about being the kind of people that we needed, especially when God starts to heal you. It's like having the cure for cancer and just keeping it to yourself. Why would I ever want somebody to be struggling through something if I had an answer to help them? So I love what you said about that. Thank you for sharing that. We are getting close to the end of this.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of wrap this up, but one of the things that you said that was really important was you might not have the ability or the time to call that person. So from the other person's perspective, if you're the friend that's reaching out to that person, sometimes they just don't have the mental capacity to deal with a conversation. Because first of all, Christina might not know that I might be calling her because I'm dealing with something. She's like, I don't have time for this. Ain't got no time for that, as she says. Because I think about like my own children, my adult children. And, they're all walking through something difficult, but there are times that I just don't have the patience or the time or the brain capacity to deal with a 2-hour-long conversation. And my heart breaks. I want to be available all the time. But that is where we have to be mindful to care for ourselves.
Yes.
To put that oxygen mask on ourselves, to make sure that we're spiritually fed and emotionally fed and physically that we're doing the thing, we're sleeping well, we're eating well, we're exercising or whatever, so that the times that we feel depleted, because you never know when God wants you to be there for your children or be there for a friend. And if we're always struggling with our own stuff, how are we ever going to be able to be a good friend? Or how are we ever going to still continue to parent and support our adult children if we're so depleted?
And I think part of that too is where we come in when we are tired and we answer the phone and we're like, that's where we get into some of the dangers.
You ever had that person, you see the phone ring, you're like, oh, I go tap for that one.
Yes. Well, and when you're already pre-tired and frustrated from dealing with a kid or a situation and exhausted, and you get on the phone, your conversation is not going to be what it needs to be. And intentionally, you may end up offending your friend, and you may end up saying or doing some things that you did that you wouldn't normally do, but you were just exhausted. You shouldn't have. Maybe you should just send a text and say, oh, I'll call you back tomorrow, or I'll call you back when your mind and your head is in the right space, because if you're already overwhelmed with the way your day is gone, and all you're going to do is just have a massive complaint session, and that's not what they need. They don't need it in their life either, no more than you need it in your life. So we need to be very mindful of that. And again, it goes back to the discernment. Is this a good idea? Am I in the right headspace to get on a 2-hour-long or even an hour-long conversation? Am I just going to rant and rave? Is this going to be a fulfilling, uplifting call, or is this just going to be a complaint session? So we need to be mindful of that also.
Yeah. So there's something else I want to add. I know we're going long, so thank you if you're still tuned in and listening. This is such an important topic. I don't think we could cover it all in one episode, but you were talking about just send a text. There's many times that I've said even to my children, if they'll call, instead of just ignoring the call, I don't like that, especially when we have our phones in our hands almost 24/7. So somebody saw your text message. Just simply say, I'm not available to talk right now. I'm not having a good day. And can we talk tomorrow? A lot of times I'll do that, with my son. He might call, and I know it's going to be a longer conversation. And I absolutely love talking to him. And I'm so grateful that my adult children want to still talk to me for hours on end. But sometimes I've had a rough day with Gracie or whatever, and I just don't have the brain capacity. And I'll say, I'm just having a really rough day. Do you mind if we talk tomorrow? And always they say, yeah, no problem. Sure. But they would probably be upset if I didn't at least send a message, because they know I saw it. They know I saw the text message or the missed call. So that's another way that we could be a good friend or a good parent, is just by responding with, I'm not able to talk right now. And just be honest. You don't have to try to make up some excuse that you're busy. Just say, I'm not feeling very well, or I'm having a really rough day, and I don't want to put that on you. That's exactly how I've texted my son. Yeah. I don't want to put this on you. I'm very negative right now, and I just need some space alone. Can I call you tomorrow? So that's another way that we can be a good friend, is by doing that. So anyway, is there anything else, any closing thoughts that you wanted to share with our lovelies?
Like what you said, if we already are aware that we're not in the right mindset and the right headspace to have a conversation, don't do it. Yeah. I know that sometimes when somebody sends me a text or when somebody calls me, if I answer it, I'm not going to be very Christ-like. And we need to remember that at all times we are supposed to be representing Christ. And instead of getting into that complaint or answering harshly, which we can do when we're irritated and being annoyed by somebody, we might feel like we have the right to answer a certain way because we're annoyed and because we've told somebody so many times this. But if it's just going to cause hurt and hard feelings, just stay away from it. That's not being Christ-like. Yeah. So we need to be mindful of that. We need to be mindful how we respond. Like you said, if we're not in the headspace, we can easily just send a nice message saying, hey, can I get back with you later? Because I'm just not in the right
Because it also, headspace. That diffuses the power of the enemy to come in without those thoughts of, oh, this person's mad at me.
Yes.
So it's both ways. Both friends need to make sure that they're supporting the other one. Even if you're not feeling good that day, just send a little something. Now we're 24/7. We can message somebody on any multiple ways. There's no reason for somebody to go days, without messaging. I deal with this with my children all the time. Like, seriously, We're in a day and age where you are probably on that phone more than anything else. It should not take a week for you to answer a text message.
Bad week.
That's right. That's right. They're like, I don't want to talk to mom right now. So there was one other thing I was going to say. I just completely forgot what I was going to say that you were sharing. I wanted to end with. I just have a brain blank. Something that you just were talking about. And I wanted to. Oh, okay. So I believe that we are responsible and accountable for our behavior regardless.
Yes.
So a lot of times it doesn't really even matter. Jesus still expects us to operate in the fruits of the Spirit. Mm-hmm. And we are grieving Holy Spirit if we still act out of anything other than that 1 Corinthians love. And I know that that is very hard for a lot of people to do, even Christians to do. I just did an episode on my Special Empowered Moms. This was just yesterday. Why are so many Christians still struggling with stress and negativity? It's because our lives do not reflect what we believe. We are still striving and stressing, and we're not actually operating in that power that God has given us. So that has to come into play when we are being friends with somebody. Even if somebody does say something offensive, that doesn't mean we have to say it back. We're still responsible. If we're in the middle of an argument with somebody, we still have to be mindful of what we said. It doesn't matter what somebody else has said to you first. This is so true when it comes to our marriages. We're both accountable. It doesn't matter who's right and wrong. And at the end of the day, nobody's right. When you're arguing, nobody's right. So we could do a whole episode about arguing.
Yes, whereas there's a scripture that says that when we get into strife and arguing, that the devil will take you captive as well. I mean, there's scripture, it's biblical. And so we do need to be very, very mindful of staying out of strife and arguing and just all that negativity.
So I think I'm going to leave us, I'm going to end this with just a few scriptures. And then, like I said, this definitely went long, but this was such a good conversation. Proverbs 27:9 says, a heartfelt counsel of a friend is as sweet as perfume and incense. And Proverbs 27:17 is iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And then Ecclesiastes 4:9-10 says, two are better than one because they are a good return for their labor. If either one of them falls down, one can help the other up. So when you have a friend, when the other one is down, you can lift them up. So I know that in marriage, we've always been told that it's not 50-50. It's actually 100%. You don't just give 50%. You give 100%. So if somebody's not giving their full amount, then at least 100% is being given. And then we just pray that we're both not having a bad day that same time. So it's the same thing with friendships. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That we do have to have grace. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Is that there is no shame or guilt, that there's no condemnation in friendships, especially as a special needs mom. We could tend to feel like, I wish I could be more like her. I wish I had more time to be a good friend. And you could see all these other women getting together. I know in our group, our writing group, man, sometimes my heart hurts because we live so far away and they're all getting together and they're going to lunch and they're doing all that and they message each other. And I'm like, man, I suck. I'm not a good friend. I don't do any of that. There's no condemnation. And they're not condemning us either. I mean, they would love for us to join them if we could, but it doesn't matter what kind of friend somebody else is being. We don't need to compare ourselves to anybody. You know, our lives might just not allow us to be able to have many, many play dates. You know what I'm saying? With kids or without kids. And that is okay. That does not mean you're a bad friend. That does not mean you're doing something wrong. There is no shame or condemnation. You just show up to be the best human being that you can be in the situation that you're in. Anyway, I think I'm just going to leave it at that. That's a good place to end this. Just show up to be the best human being that you can.
Right.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us on another episode of the Junk Drawer Mamas as we go through the junk drawer. This was definitely a deep topic for us and one that it hits close to home for us. Neither Christina or I have ever had friendship like we've had now. So we're still navigating that. I think for so many years, we just isolated ourselves away and just figured that wasn't going to be available to us. Right. So I'm so grateful that God brought you into my life, Christina, and we do sharpen each other.
Yep.
You know, and I just pray that for everybody listening, that God will bring that person into your life, not only that friend that you can walk through life, but the mentor that can help you walk through something. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey. We love you, and we can't wait for you to come back so we can go through another item in the junk drawer. Yep. Have an awesome week.
Bye.
Bye. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us and listening to the Junk Drawer Mamas podcast. If today's episode encouraged you, share it with a mom who could use a little extra love and support. We'd love to hear from you too. Leave us a review and let us know what you think, or send us your ideas for what you want us to tackle in the junk drawer. You can email us anytime at junkdrawermamas@gmail.com. Stay connected with us on social media. Follow Dina at Specially Empowered Moms and Christina at Faith Through Foster Care for more encouragement and updates on our upcoming books. From two mamas in the throes of extreme parenting, we want you to know that you're doing a great job, Mama, and you don't have to have it all together. But what's hidden can't be healed, so let's keep sorting through it together, one step, one story, and one laugh at a time. See you next time when we tackle another item in the junk drawer of life. Have an awesome week.